Defense wins championships, and playing great defense is often the biggest difference between winning and losing. That's why in this video, I'm giving you guys the ultimate guide to defense with my 8 key tips to playing lockdown defense in college football 26. So starting off with key tip number 1, always have a blitz in your defensive scheme. The best defenses are the ones that can generate crazy fast pressure. And if you can generate that pressure with just 4 players rushing the quarterback, it's going to give you a huge advantage on the defensive side of the ball. College football 26 has loop blitzes, edge blitzes, stunt blitzes, and overload blitzes, and I strongly recommend that you run at least one of those in your defensive scheme. And so right here, I'm going to show you guys one of the easiest loop blitzes to run in the entire game. I'm in the 3-4 defensive playbook, which is Oregon's defensive playbook. I'm in the formation 3-4 odd, and we'll look at the play name in just a second. But what's great about this blitz is when you snap the ball, your middle linebacker is going to come through completely untouched for an easy sack on the quarterback. So let's go into the play call screen and look at what play we are running. Like I said, we're in the formation 3-4 odd, and the play is going to be Will Buck 3 press. You don't need any special coaching adjustments. You actually should leave auto flip turned on because this can work from either side. And so you just have to call Will Buck 3 press. And if your opponent is sending all 5 players out on routes, then you don't have to touch anything. You're just going to use her with this linebacker in the 3 rec, and you can stand anywhere you want. And when your opponent snaps the ball, your linebacker is going to come through completely clean for an easy sack on the quarterback. Now, there are a couple things we should talk about. The first thing is that if you want the blitz to come in even better, there is one adjustment we should make, and that is to simply spread the D-line, which is left on the D-pad and up on the left stick. It obviously can come in without that adjustment, but spreading the D-line seems to make it come in even more consistently. Now, the second thing we should talk about is I said at the beginning, we want pressure with just 4 players rushing the quarterback. But if we count here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 players rushing the quarterback. And so with 5 players rushing, we don't really have that much of an advantage on the defensive side of the ball. So how can we turn this blitz into just a 4-man rush? And in order to do that, we can actually take this defensive end on the side opposite of the blitzing linebacker and drop him off into a coverage assignment. And so I can put him into a hook curl zone, and then this is still our user, and we can stand anywhere we want. And now with just a 4-man rush, this blitz is still going to come through completely clean and get an easy sack on the quarterback. Now, you may be saying, well, what if your opponent just scrambles with their quarterback away from the blitz? Well, then you can just take this defensive end and put him in a QB spy. You don't have to have him on a hook curl. You can have him on whatever you want. And when you snap the ball, then you still get your blitz that comes in clean, and you have a QB spy on the field to prevent against the scramble. Now, the next thing you may be wondering is what if your opponent runs the ball, especially if you're spying out this defensive end or putting him in a zone assignment or something? Well, here is where the positioning of your blitzing linebacker comes in, because as long as you flip your play so that your blitzing linebacker is on the side opposite of the running back, if your opponent was to run something like inside zone right here, that linebacker is actually going to come through and shoot the gap for you. So this is a great blitz against the pass. It's also great run defense. Look at this. I've never seen a gap shoot this easy before, where your opponent just snaps the ball, it's an inside zone, and the linebacker is going to come through and do the gap shoot for you to tackle the running back in the backfield. And so this is an incredibly powerful blitz. And like I said, there's plenty of other blitzes in the game, but if you want a super easy blitz to run, then this play right here in the 3-4 odd formation is one of the best ways you can get pressure on your opponent. And we actually had this blitz posted weeks ago on playbookprofessor.gg. We discovered this the day after the game launched. And so if you want to know the latest tactics that people are running online and know them the moment they're discovered, then make sure you're a member over there on playbookprofessor.gg. Next up, for key tip number 2, match coverage is the most powerful type of coverage in college football 26. Zone coverage is really bad this year. Man coverage is pretty good, but match coverage is by far the stickiest coverage that I have seen so far. Now, if you're not familiar with what match coverage is, you can think of it as essentially a combination of zone coverage and match coverage. It would take an hour to go into all the rules of match coverage, but basically what you need to know is that when certain receivers run certain routes, different defenders will match onto them. And matching on just simply means they will convert to man coverage. And so I think one of the easiest ways to show you guys how match coverage works is to do a simple demonstration. And so right here, I'm in the play cover 4 palms. Now everyone should know that cover 4 palms and cover 4 quarters have built-in match logic. Cover 4 drop does not. And on offense, we are going to be running a simple flood concept on the right side of the field. We're not worried about the left side. We're just focusing on the right side. This is a great concept for beating drop zone coverage. But what you're going to see is that against match coverage, we're going to have everything completely bagged. If we go ahead and snap the ball, you're going to see that our flat route is covered, our corner route is covered, everything is covered, and there's nothing to throw. There's nothing open. And so let's look at how these guys are matching on. You have the quarter flat defender here, this linebacker, who's initially going to chuck the corner route as he runs by, and then he's going to go ahead and guard the running back in the flat. So far, so good. Now, you have this safety right here. He's responsible for the number 2 receiver, and that's getting into the match numbering system. I'll talk about that in a second. But this receiver right here, who's on the corner route, he's the number 2. And this safety in the inside quarter, if that number 2 receiver goes on a vertical route, he is going to match onto him. That means he's going to convert to man coverage. So right here, he's on a vertical route. A vertical route is anything that's going beyond 10 yards. He is now going to match onto him. So he's now in man coverage. And so when that ball comes in, he is in perfect position to make a play and force the pass breakup. Now, I mentioned the numbering system. Let's talk about the numbering system. On offense, the players are numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4, counting from outside in. And it's the same on each side. So let me do an example of what that means. On the right side, this outermost receiver is the number 1 receiver, and this slot receiver is the number 2 receiver, and then the running back would be number 3. Those are the players on the right side of the quarterback. On the left side of the quarterback is the same counting system. The outermost receiver is number 1, and the slot receiver is number 2. There is no number 3 because there's just the 2 receivers on the left side of the quarterback. And so all the different match coverages, like cover 4 palms, cover 4 quarters, cover 3 match, they all have different rules based on the behavior of each receiver. Like I said, it's too much to go into right now in this video, but all you need to know is that for match coverage, your defenders will be converting to man coverage based on the routes that the receivers are running. Now, an important disclaimer here is that match coverage can also be broken, so you have to be careful with it. And by broken, what I mean is that there are ways to exploit the match logic to get players open for a one-play touchdown. And so I'm going to show you a quick way that you can bomb cover 4 quarters out of any trip set. And so we'll just go into gun trio halfback weak. Like I said, it doesn't actually matter what the trip set is, but what's going to happen here is if we have our inside trips receiver on a slot fade, and then we have our middle trips receiver on a corner route, and then whatever you want on the outside guy, you put him on an out route, put him on a hitch, whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. Same thing with the tight end. Doesn't really matter. What's going to happen here is that this safety on the inside quarter on the right side is going to try to match onto the slot fade super late. And as a result, he's going to be completely out of position, and it's going to be an easy one-play touchdown for us. So I'm going to go ahead and snap this ball. And what you will see is that super late, and in fact, in this case, he stopped trying to match on. So that was even worse than I expected. So he started to match on, and then at some point he just glitched out and decided, you know what, I'm not even going to play coverage at all. So he was initially going to, and then it looks like he just changed his mind halfway through. And as you can see, this is not ideal to let someone be this open. And so this is your disclaimer that if you're going against someone who knows how to bomb match coverage, then you are taking on a big risk. And that's why I wouldn't recommend running match coverage on every single play. It's definitely something that you want to mix into your scheme, because if you're just mixing in the match coverage, then your opponent's not very likely to set up a match coverage bomb. If you're only running it on 1/3 or 1/4 of your plays, then them setting up a match coverage bomb doesn't give them very good odds of it actually being successful. And so just like with any coverage in this game, there are pros and there are cons. Now, the other thing is a lot of players don't even know how to beat match coverage. And so if you're going against one of those people, you can run match coverage all game long and they might just be completely bagged. But in summary, I strongly recommend that you start incorporating match coverage into your defense because it can be extremely powerful when used properly. Now, moving on to key tip number 3, this is how you can take your user skill to the next level. Usering is one of the biggest factors in playing great defense, and everybody should be usering with a middle linebacker over the middle of the field. field. And right here, I wanted to share with you guys 2 little mini tips that will make your usering even better. And so the first mini tip is to use the strafe feature. If you're not familiar, strafing is simply after the ball is snapped, you can hold down the left trigger or L2 and it will keep your user squared up to the quarterback. This is probably one of the most underrated features in the entire game. People don't think about that much because when you strafe, you can't run nearly as fast as you can when sprinting. But in this game especially, it is crucial that you actually have your user facing the quarterback. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen players try to intercept a ball, but because their back is to the ball and to the quarterback, their user is not able to turn around and actually animate to get an interception. And so when you are using in coverage, please get used to holding down the left trigger or L2 in order to keep your user strafing. And remember, you don't have to strafe at all times. You can sprint around some and then turn around and strafe and then sprint again and then strafe again. You don't have to be holding it down the whole time, but use it strategically. And especially as you see your opponent about to throw the ball or as the ball is coming in, use that strafe button to make sure you can actually intercept the ball. Now, the second mini tip for usering is anticipate your opponent's read progression. And so if your opponent was doing something like this, where they are sending a deep cross from one side, and then they are also having a backside dig route come in, this is where you need to anticipate your opponent's read progression, because obviously you may naturally want to run with the deep cross, and that's perfectly fine. But if you run with that deep cross long enough, eventually your opponent's just going to go ahead and take that deep dig route over the middle in that space that you vacated. And so if you want to really user like a pro, what you want to do is anticipate your opponent's route combo. And what that means is you will initially want to user with the crosser here, but then as you're guarding it, you want to be scanning elsewhere on the field and look at what other routes are about to come open. And if you see a route about to come open, you want to break off the route you're currently guarding to go ahead and take that next route. It's a little bit of a gamble. It's a little bit high risk, high reward, because of course, if you break off the original route you're on and then your opponent throws to it, you could give up some yards. But if you think about it from the perspective of your opponent, if they are trying to throw to this crosser and they see your user running with it, they're going to be like, okay, well, the crosser's not open. Let me look for something else. And so you are trying to match their thought process and match their read progression and jump in front of the route they want to throw next. And so, all right, guys, so I made a quick cut in the video because I only have 2 hands and using 2 controllers has been kind of tough, but I want to show you guys some good reps of what I'm talking about. And so if we go ahead and snap this ball, we're going to initially run with the crosser, but as we see that dig route coming over the middle, we're going to jump in front of it and try to get the interception. And that's all there really is to it, is you initially guard one route, in this case, the crosser, and we're on the crosser, and we basically show our opponent that it is covered. You see we're running like well in front of it. Our opponent would then say, okay, let's go back down to the crosser. And so they start throwing. They don't even realize that we're turning around to run after it because we're all the way up here still guarding the crosser. So they're already starting their throwing motion, but we are already breaking on the ball. And now we are in front of it. And, you know, if this game was better, that would be an interception. Of course it wasn't, but that's okay. We are still there in position to make a play. And so those are 2 huge keys to usering like a pro is 1, using the strafe button strategically, and 2, anticipating your opponent's read progressions. And if you can do that, you will force way more turnovers when you're on defense. Now for key tip number 4, this is how you can easily gap shoot any shotgun run play. This is a super easy method and it works against all types of shotgun runs. It works against inside zones, counters, power runs, and outside zones. And it's the exact same method for all of them. So what we're gonna do in order to run this gap shoot is we need to find a 4 down lineman set where all 4 of our D linemen are approximately even spaced. And so right here, I'm in the formation nickel over, but there are plenty of other formations that you can do this out of, but nickel over happens to be in a lot of different playbooks. Now, the only adjustment we're gonna make before the snap is we're gonna slant our D line outside. So that's left on the D-pad and up on the right stick. Now, the final thing we have to do is user with this linebacker on the side of the running back. And so the running back's on the right side. I'm going to user with the right side linebacker. Now, when the ball is snapped, regardless of what kind of run play it is, you're going to try and fly through the gap that will open up between your 2 defensive tackles. And in some cases, it'll be a pretty huge gap. You're always coming through there. And then depending on what kind of run it is, you'll of course adjust your trajectory accordingly. But to start off, let's look at inside zone. And this is probably the easiest one this is the easiest gap shoot ever. You'll see how easy this is. We're gonna go ahead and snap this ball, and there's just an absolutely enormous gap for you to run through and easily bring the running back down. If you look at the replay real quick, you can see this is about as massive of a gap as you'll ever have to run through with your linebacker, and there will be absolutely nowhere for your opponent to go, and that is a tackle for an easy loss. Now, let's look at some other shotgun run plays. Let's go to counter Y. Now, on this one, we're once again going through the exact same gap, and in this case, we will sometimes end up engaging with one of these pulling blockers, but that's okay as long as we still plug the running lane. So if we go ahead and snap this ball, come through the gap, and come around right here, you can see that we completely took away where the running back was trying to go on the counter. Like, did we make the tackle ourselves? No, but that's okay, because look at what happens here. The counter is designed to go to the outside. We completely took away that lane. There is nowhere for the running back to go. He can't go outside. He is kind of forced to bounce it back inside, but we have defenders waiting for him in the middle, and now there is just absolutely nowhere for him to run. And so because of our gap shoot, because of our user flying through right here, occupying this blocker, and plugging the running lane, there is just absolutely nowhere for our opponent to go on this counter Y. Now, let's look at power run and outside zone, and for that, we need to go to a different formation. And so we can go ahead and call halfback power O for the offense, and on defense, we'll just call cover 3 sky once again, even though, like I said before, it doesn't actually matter. And I will say that these power O plays, they can get picked up more often than the inside zones and the counters, but you can still gap shoot these. And so if we go ahead and snap this ball, we're going to come through, and once again, we're able to make the tackle. As you can see, that one's a little bit tougher. I had to make the diving tackle. And so, like I said, I think that the power O's are the best against this. But as you can see, it's still a giant gap to get through, and it's kind of a 50-50 about whether or not number 66 here will come over and pick us up. You see that he was pretty close, and so I think that the dive did help in this case, but you can see that it's still a very serviceable gap shoot, even against a power O run. Now, the final run we have to look at is going to be the outside zone. Now, on these outside zone runs, you do not want to dive with your user. If you dive, you'll just completely take yourself out of the play. So you're just going to want to sprint through the line and just try to run down the ball carrier as he tries to take it around the edge. And so it's the exact same gap shoot, slant the D-line outside. When we go ahead and snap this ball, you're just going to fly right through this gap, try to run him down, and there you go. You have your tackle in the backfield. This gap shoot is definitely the cleanest and easiest against inside zone, but as you can see, against all 4 of these run plays, we have gaps that we can come through and make the tackle in the backfield. And so definitely get into practice mode, start with inside zone. That's the easiest way to learn it because that's when it's going to come through the cleanest and the gap will be enormous. And then once you're comfortable doing this against inside zone, you can go ahead and start running this against all other types of shotgun run plays as well. Next up, for key tip number 5, this is the best defense for keeping your opponent out of the end zone. If your opponent is down on the 1 or 2 yard line, there's an extremely high chance that they will switch to the goal line offensive formation. And so right now, I'm going to show you guys the best goal line defense that will guarantee you always keep your opponent out of the end zone. And so to start, let's talk about what formation we need to call. And let's go to the play call screen and look at our different options for goal line defense. What most people will do if they see their opponent coming out in goal line is they will scroll down to goal line and just call a play in goal line 6-2. And I'm here to tell you guys that is the wrong formation. You need to tab over to goal line 5-3. Goal line 5-3 is going to give you a nose tackle, and that nose tackle makes all the difference for stopping QB sneak, which is people's favorite play to run out of the goal line offensive formation. So we're going to call MLB Gap A in goal line 5-3. And we have the offense here in QB sneak. Now, our adjustments before the snap are going to be to pinch our D-line, which is left on the D-pad, down on the left stick. We're going to slant our D-line inside, which is left on the D-pad, down on the right stick. And then we're going to hover with our user about a yard or 2 over the nose tackle. When you have this set up right here, if your opponent runs QB sneak, it doesn't even matter if your user runs in, they are going to have nowhere to go. You'll have one or multiple D linemen or linebackers or whoever you have in there coming in and hitting the quarterback before he can go anywhere. And this is repeatable. You can see over and over again that this quarterback is gaining 0 yards. He might even be losing yards. And so now we have QB sneak completely bagged. But But you may be saying, well, that's just one play. People can obviously run other things out of the goal line offensive formation as well. And so let's look at the other things that people will try to run. So maybe they try to run a little bit more outside with a power O. And in that case, we actually will need to make use of our user. And this is why we keep our user back here, is to keep our user free to flow left or right if our opponent runs something other than a QB sneak or a halfback dive. And so if our opponent snaps the ball for power O, we just come out here with our user and we try to plug any running lane. I prefer to go outside and force my opponent to run back inside, because as you can see, we have help to the inside. We don't always have help to the outside. And so I went outside, forced my opponent back inside, and you see that if you force him back inside, you will always have help. And once again, we kept him out of the end zone. Let's look at some other runs. Of course, there's halfback dive. Hopefully everyone can tell that halfback dive has no chance against this. If your opponent snaps the ball for halfback dive, in this case, we even have a D tackle come in completely untouched, and the quarterback can't even get the handoff. And so far, so good. Now, the final thing that we should look at, there's halfback sting. Sorry, halfback sting. This is actually a pretty good goal line run, and it's going to go in the other direction. And this one, we definitely need our user to be ready for as well. And so when your opponent snaps the ball for halfback sting, we need to come around over here. And fortunately, again, as you can see, this is kind of the advantage of having, pinching and slanting inside on the D line. On a lot of these handoffs, there's going to come through and tackle the quarterback before he can even make the handoff. You can see that if the handoff happened, I was once again with my user, I was going around the edge to get some outside leverage and force our opponent to run back inside. But ultimately, it didn't even matter. We're tackling the quarterback before he can even hand the ball off. Now, the final thing, everyone's favorite thing to say is, well, what about strong toss? And so let's look at toss. This is, of course, going to be the toughest thing to defend because we are pinching and slanting inside. But once again, we have our user free right here. And if we see a toss to the outside, we're going to run outside, and same as before on power O, we're going to try and force our opponent back inside. And so if it is strong toss, we just sprint outside, we try to get around the edge. You can see that the opponent decided to try and cut it back inside because we had outside leverage. Now, if they had kept running outside, would they have gotten into the end zone? Possibly. Possibly they would have, because they did have a lead blocker. And you know what? If your opponent scores on strong toss, it kind of just is what it is. At the end of the day, they are on the 1 yard line, and so they will maybe get in occasionally, but this is still going to be by far the best defense for keeping them out of the end zone as much as possible. And you see once again right there, a strong toss. As long as your user is ready for it, you can get on the outside and you can have a decent chance of making a play on the ball. So right there, we're able to actually cut inside of the lead blocker and make a tackle and keep our opponent out of the end zone. And so, like I said, if your opponent's on the 1 yard line or the 2 yard line and they're in goal line, this is going to be the best chance you possibly have of shutting down every single type of run play that your opponent wants to run. And if you can clamp down on the goal line and keep your opponent out of the end zone, then you are going to win way more games. Now, moving on to key tip number 6. This is how you can easily shut down corner routes in college football 26. Flood concepts are one of the easiest concepts for people to run on offense to destroy zone coverage. And so if you don't know how to guard corner routes, you can get gashed by these concepts all game long. And so right now, I'm going to show you guys 3 different methods for shutting down corner routes and flood concepts. And so in case anyone isn't aware, a flood concept is when the offense has something like a streak, out route or flat, and corner all on the same side of the field. They are flooding a sideline and putting defenders in conflict, making it really tough to guard all of these routes. And so if we go ahead and run this, you can see that in this case, the corner route is going to be open with a little pass lead down, and our corner route is catching that ball underneath the defender in the outside third, who was pushed deep by the streak. So let's talk about how we can guard these corner routes. And the first thing, this doesn't even really count. You could, of course, always just user the corner route with your user. This is not one of the methods, but of course, in the worst case scenario, if you absolutely have to, you could just run with it and take it away. And that is one method that you have. However, we have 3 other ways that we can guard corner routes without having to take our user so far out of the play. And so the first method is going to be to simply use zone drops. And so if we wanted to be shading our coverage down every play in order to take away the flats, we would need to use a purple zone on this linebacker here in order to guard the sideline. However, if you just have your curl flat on a default zone drop, he might not play in the exact spot that you want. And so if we go into our coaching adjustments, we can use our zone drops to decide exactly how deep we want that curl flat to play. And specifically, we need to change our setting for zone drops curl flats. And so in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and change it to 25. This is the depth that any purple zone on the field will play unless I custom zone stem it out on the field, and we're not worried about that right now. And so we put our zone drop curl flats on 25. We can once again call cover 3 sky, and we'll once again build this flood concept really quick. That is our flood concept. And now on defense, I'm going to go ahead and shade down because I still want to guard those hard flats. But now I'm just going to go ahead and put this linebacker on a curl flat. So that's individual adjustments, and right on the left stick for the curl flat. You can see how deep it is now, and you can even see that it is dropping 25 yards back. That's a change I really like this year, that when you have zone drops on, it actually visually shows you how deep your zone is going to drop. And so I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we QB contain and spy these guys out. I don't want the pass rush to come in before we can really observe how the zones are playing, but this is our flood concept. If we go ahead and snap this ball, you're going to see that the curl flat now gets way out there, and he is in perfect position to make a play on that corner route. And so that is option number 1, is to simply use a zone dropped curl flat in order to take away the corner route on the deep sideline. Now, the second method, if you don't want to use zone coverage, is to simply man up this player and then use a shade, or really a route commit, in this case to the outside. Now, in order to man up one of our players onto a receiver, we're going to first press A on Xbox or X on PlayStation to pull up the individual adjustments menu, or we're going to press up on the right stick for man coverage. We're then going to select the icon of the receiver that we want to man up, which in this case is going to be the B icon. And now our linebacker is manned up. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to route commit him to the outside. And so we're going to press RB or R1 to pull up our route commit menu, and press right on the left stick to route commit him to the outside. So what we're doing here is we are simply making a guess that this is going to be an out-breaking route from that receiver. If we guess correctly, then the route will be completely bagged. If we guess incorrectly and it's an in-breaking route, then our linebacker will get completely torched. But that's just a risk that we are willing to take. So let me go ahead and once again kind of spy out the D line so we can watch this route develop. Let me go ahead and put the same route combo on the field again, and we can see that when we snap this ball, that linebacker who is manned up on the receiver is going to be all over him and easily there to make a play. And of course, we had some help from our other defender as well, but as you saw, the linebacker was all over it. And so manning him up and route committing to the outside is the second way that we can guard corner routes. Now, the final method for guarding corner routes in flood concepts is going to be match coverage. So let's go back into our play call screen once again. And it's important, if you're going to use match coverage, you need to turn off any zone drops. So that 25-yard curl flat we set, we need to change this back to default. If you have any zone drops set, then match coverage will not work. And so I'm going to go ahead and call cover 4 palms. We're going to call the exact same route combo on offense, and we'll go ahead and build that really quick. And what's really great about match coverage is that sometimes it just guards these flood concepts automatically. And so I can just be right here usering over the middle. I can go ahead and spy out the D line once again. And in this case, what's going to happen is the safety in the inside quarter. Oh, and you should always back off your outside cornerback as a side note. You don't want him being pressed up ever. And so what's going to happen here is in cover 4 palms, this safety is going to match onto the inside trips receiver on the corner route. And of course, the personnel does play a factor. And I'll be honest with you guys, I've been running a few reps and he is matching onto the corner route. And whoever this wall guy is on BYU is just slow as hell. And so don't be like BYU and have your slowest guy back there at safety. But as you can see, if we go ahead and snap this ball, you see that he is going to match onto it. And you hope that he'll be able to make a play. And right there, he was barely able to make a play. So shout out Wall for actually making a play. But if you have someone more athletic out there, then they'll just have an easier time match onto that corner route. You can see once again right here, he is going to match on. And then if your opponent tries to do that corner route, you just hope that your safety is there to make a play. Nice extension from Wall. I appreciate that. And so those are 3 different methods to guard flood concepts and corner routes. We talked about using zone drops. We talked about using man coverage with a route commit outside. And we also talked about using match coverage. And there actually is a 4th method, but we're going to talk about that in the next tip. Now for key tip number 7, use switch stick to cover every part of the field with your user. Switch stick is the single most powerful tool that we have on the defensive side of the ball. And so right now I want to talk to you guys about what switch stick is and how we can get the very most out of it. And so to start, let's talk about what is switch stick. Switch stick is the ability to change what player you are using with after the ball is snapped. And you do it by simply flicking your right stick in the direction of the player that you want to take control of. Now, the players must be in coverage assignments, both the player you are currently using with and the player you are switching onto. And coverage assignments can be zone coverage, man coverage, QB spies. They simply cannot be rushing the quarterback. But like I said, you just flick your right stick in the direction of the player you want to change to. So if I go ahead and snap this ball, and I have some QB spies on the field so that we'll have lots of time to switch stick around, flick my right stick to the right, controlling that linebacker, back to the left, controlling this linebacker, back to the right, I'm controlling that linebacker, up on the right stick, and now I'm controlling the safety. And you saw that how we could just instantly switch stick back and forth across the field to whatever player we wanted to take control of. And so that is the switch stick mechanic. And now let's talk about a very practical application for it. So one of the most common ways that people will use switch stick is to guard a streak and corner route combo. And so once again, I'm going to go ahead and shade this coverage down. And on the left side, we're going to build a streak and corner route combo. We're just going to streak out these guys on the right side. We're not worried about the right side. We're going to focus on the left side. Now, in this particular case, if I'm using this linebacker here and I see that slot receiver on the left go on a corner route, what I can do is switch stick onto the outside cornerback and the outside third and bring him down and undercut the corner route. This is a high risk, high reward move because if your opponent ends up not trying to throw the corner route, you do end up leaving the streak wide open. However, most opponents, they will see after the ball is snapped, they will see their fade route or their streak going deep. They'll see a defender in an outside third or an outside quarter running deep with it. And then they automatically go, okay, my corner route is about to be open. And so if you can surprise them with the switch stick, you can undercut their throw to the corner route and get an easy interception. And so on this first rep here, I'm just going to do the switch stick. I'm not going to throw it as well because I only have 2 hands and it's tough to do that with 2 hands. But I'll just do the switch stick first, and then we'll try to do the switch stick and the throw. And so if we go ahead and snap this ball, let me make sure I got my hands on the right controller. Go ahead and snap this ball. You can see that we can switch stick over to the third and undercut the corner route right there. And like I said, it is a little bit of a high risk, high reward move. If your opponent recognizes the switch and then end up throwing to the corner route or to the streak, then it might be a touchdown. But you can still see here, this is what you have the capability of doing, is there's a lot of players who will initially see this, and they'll be like, oh, my corner route's about to be open. But you can see because of the black ring under the players, I'm on the linebacker. Now I switch stick onto the outside third, and I bring him back down underneath the corner route. Now without the throw, it might look a little ridiculous, but let's go ahead and run this again, and I'm going to try to make the throw this time. And like I said, I only have 2 hands, and so I really don't even know how well this is going to work, but I'm going to do my best for you guys. So I got to throw to the Y receiver while also switch sticking. So let's see how this goes. So we're using right here, and we're going to switch stick over. We're going to throw to Y, and now we are all over it, and we almost get the interception. And again, a little bit of a clunky example. It's really tough to do this with 2 controllers. But as you can see, once again, we recognize the corner route. We don't have to be over there with our user, but we recognize the corner route. We switch stick onto this defender, and if they end up throwing the corner route, we can make sure we keep him staying down on the corner route and go for the interception. And so that is the power of switch stick. And the other thing I want to show you guys is a simple drill that you can do to start to get used to switch stick, because the first time you use switch stick, it's a little bit weird. It's not really intuitive. It's not really a mechanic that's been around super long because it was just introduced in Madden last year, and it was of course in the new College Football 25 game last year. And so it's only been around for a little over a year, and a lot of people still aren't really using it as much as they should be. And so if you want a little drill to get used to using switch stick, go into a cover 4 drop and just put the offense in whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just QB contain the D-line. You don't need to worry about the pass rush. And what I want you to start by doing is just simply switch sticking back and forth across these 4 underneath defenders. Just left and right, left and right. And of course, it's going to be after the snap. So if we go ahead and snap this ball, just switch it to the left and now to the right and to the right. And just get used to switching onto these guys. And over time, as you get used to switch sticking onto those guys, you'll kind of build that muscle memory. You'll kind of naturally get used to like, okay, this is how switch stick works. You'll kind of just start incorporating it into your game. Side note, this 3-man rush is going insane. This 3-man rush should not be coming in this quick, but that's okay. But again, just snap the ball in a cover 4 drop, just back and forth, and eventually you will build the muscle memory of switch sticking. And once you get used to that, then you can start switch sticking onto your safeties and outside cornerbacks over the top as well. And so you can start down here, and you start to go up to the top right here, and just switch stick around to your different safeties and everything. It's a simple drill. This is like, if you've never used switch stick before, this is the best way to just start using it. And if you do this drill enough times, then when you go into your actual games, you will find yourself actually comfortable with using the switch stick mechanic against a real opponent. And so that is switch stick, and once you can master it, it will absolutely take your defense to a whole new level. And finally, we have key tip number 8. Everyone should know how to back off individual cornerbacks. Some defensive plays will naturally have one or multiple defensive backs pressed up at the line of scrimmage, and if you don't know how to individually back them off, it puts that defender at risk of getting burned over the top for a 1-play touchdown, especially if the wide receiver across from him is on a streak. And so right here, I have the Michigan defense in cover 4 palms, and if we look at the outside cornerback on the left side, we can see that he is pressed up on the line of scrimmage and the receiver across from him is on a streak. Now that cornerback is going to try to jam this receiver at the line of scrimmage, and the receiver, as a result, is going to have a very high chance of getting a super win animation. If we go ahead and snap this ball, we're going to see that the receiver wins, and if the quarterback can put the ball out in front of him, then it is going to be an easy 1-play touchdown for the offense. And so let's how we can prevent this from happening if we're on the defensive side of the ball. And it's actually super simple. Now, of course, you could just click onto him and manually drag him back, but this is a method where you can stay clicked onto your user in the middle of the field. And so all we're going to do to back that cornerback off is press Y or triangle to pull up our coverage adjustments menu. Then we're going to press A on Xbox or X on PlayStation for individual. When that happens, it's going to pull up all of the receiver icons of the offense. And we need to select the icon of the receiver that our defensive back is lined up across. So in this case, it is the X receiver our cornerback is lined up across. So we're going to select X in this case. And then you're simply going to press up on the right stick for back off. And when you do that, you can see that cornerback is now way backed off, and you are no longer at risk of giving up that 1-play touchdown. This is a super useful adjustment, and especially if you're in some kind of setup or some kind of blitz where you want to start by pressing your whole defense, but then you want to back certain guys off, you can do that. And so if I wanted to back off the quarter flat defender on the left side, it'd be the exact same thing. Y or triangle for coverage adjustments, individual, select the icon of the player, in this case RB, and then up on the right stick, and he is going to now back off as well. This is a super simple and super useful mechanic, and so if you ever see a cornerback who is pressed up in a spot where you don't want him to be, just simply build this muscle memory where you can just instantly back that guy off, and that is going to put you at way lower risk of giving up a 1-play touchdown. So those are the 8 key tips for playing lockdown defense in college football 26. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so that we know you want to see more videos just like this one. But thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.